I believe there's going to be a blue wave in Georgia because the folks who are voting are primarily Democrats, and they're voting and independents, and they're voting because literally they understand that their lives depend on this election and the outcome. Because we have a pandemic, and even though there have been efforts and attempts to try to downplay the impact of the coronavirus, the fact is that it has reached the White House, it has reached the president, the first lady, and the president's youngest child. In addition to that, several staffers in the White House, as well as people who are close to the White House on his campaign team, and those who attend his rallies. And what he is doing now is saying, look, I'm standing back, I'm practicing social distancing, but essentially the hell with the rest of y'all. I just want y'all there because they're still screaming out in the audience side by side, primarily with no masks.
Yes. Wow.
So it is, and people are seeing that. They're seeing the narcissism. They're seeing someone who absolutely cares nothing about anyone but himself and winning. And so I believe that we will see change on the evening of November 3rd. And I want it to be big change so that it is not going to be decided by our Supreme Court. Okay. I want this election to be decided by the voters decisively. And I believe that there will be big blue wins in states that have never voted for a Democrat or not in recent history voted for a Democrat. So I believe that we will see change. I believe we will be saying number 46 very shortly, and I, for one, will be happy.
Madam State's Attorney, will you prosecute folks who acts of voter intimidation?
Voter intimidation is a crime, yes, and we will prosecute here in Prince George's County.
Good. See, Shannon, this is the kind of place we all need to live in.
Right.
And we're not going to tolerate, if we got to bring Mike Blow Black here, we're not going to tolerate that kind of foolishness here in Prince George's County. This is a message every county and city needs to deal with. Don't put up with it.
Right.
I'm not going to have a state's attorney who hems and haws about whether or not she's going to prosecute somebody. I want to know that that's what she's going to do if it happens here in her county.
Right. And it'll be easy when you stand out there voting. You know who's voting for who. All you got to do is count the mask. Everybody in line with a mask. There's no longer donkeys and elephants. It's masks and no masks. So them folks out there swear down the mask. It's not going to get them, but it's got him and half his family and half the cabinet. But
I halfway hope then bad with these rallies he's having, there'll be even less Republican votes.
Let's not say that.
You got a ventilator stuck down your throat.
We want everybody to be healthy.
Yeah, we do want
everyone to stay healthy.
Yeah. That sounds good. But while you were talking about that, you were talking about the integrity of Madam State's Attorney. That is a great segue into one of the last questions I wanted to ask you about. Can you talk to us about the integrity unit?
So we have a public integrity unit. Our public integrity unit is a standalone unit that prosecutes police misconduct and use of force cases, as well as public corruption cases. And that doesn't necessarily have to involve law enforcement officers. It could be government officials, elected officials, those working for government. So that unit is, very active, unfortunately. But, we have had to do our job. We review all types of cases. But we have, I think, charged so far about 13 officers. We've had 2 trials so far, and we got victories in both of those trials. And we have several coming up. So, we're just going to do our job. It is important that we hold officers accountable. There's only one set of laws in Prince George's County, and they apply to officers as well as civilians. And so everyone's expected to behave appropriately and obey the law. And when they don't, our office will take action.
I'd love to hear that. I hope you get a whole lot of phone calls from other states' attorneys across the country and say, hey, can we do something like that? Yeah, you need to do something like that.
That's a good question, then. But Madam State's Attorney, how many Black female state's attorneys or attorney generals or prosecutors do we have nationwide now?
I think the number may be around 30. I can tell you that we represent 1.03% of all elected prosecutors in the country. So it's a very small minority and very small sorority of Black female prosecutors, and only about maybe 13 or 14 of us are what I call reform-minded prosecutors. Some have decided just to kind of continue the same old, kind of system of justice that has not worked for our people. And some of us have decided that we will no longer be held down and shackled by the old way of doing things, that we're setting our own course.
Do you all get a lot of pushback from the Good Old Boy Network of those who want
Of course, because there are people who have benefited from the system financially. They benefit from the system by being promoted because of the number of arrests that they get, and how certain offices or departments reward, individuals or officers for arresting people. And that's, a big problem that we have in our communities. So yeah, you get pushback and then some people just don't understand. I mean, they have never been exposed to anything but one system. And so they think that anything other than that is a problem. And that's okay. Change always meets resistance, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to keep moving. One thing I know as the state's attorney is that, there's a lot of power that this office wields. Now, I'm very humble about it because it is not a type of power where, you should be arrogant about. This is the type of power that you must be humble about and must recognize your purpose, right? But what I understand is that the system moves when I move. If I say we're not going to ask for cash bail, then there are going to be a lot of people who are released without having to pay cash bail because they can't afford it. And I think that's a system that rewards the haves versus the have-nots. You have the money, you can pay a bail, you can get out. If you don't have the money, you can't pay a bail, then you stay in. But if you've committed the same offense, then, what's the difference between someone, in terms of the impact on the community, someone who could pay to get out and someone who can't? So as a result of that, we've seen a decrease in the number of people who are being held pre-trial. Again, I don't control everything, but I control my part of it. And what I know is that when I control my part and when I do my part, things move. When I say things like, we can't and we won't prosecute for, minor marijuana possession cases. Well, do the officers not like that? They absolutely hate it, because a lot of them, they would make their arrests on the back of these young Black kids who they were able to pop for marijuana. But you go into white communities, they're smoking marijuana too, but no one is arresting their kids, okay? So you have all these Black kids with all of these charges and convictions, and it affects their ability to go to school and get scholarships and to get jobs and all of those things. Whereas the same kid who may be white, they don't get affected by that. It's a phase that they went through, and now they're doing their thing. They're moving on with their lives. Like, our kids deserve the opportunity to have that as well. So when I say we're not doing this, yes, officers aren't happy about it, but guess what? The system moves in the direction that the state attorney moves. So it's
also, Shannon, so I'm that community person, remember. So this cashless bail, it means that a father who is the breadwinner for his family, who is stopped for a unpaid traffic ticket, he won't sit in the county jail for 4 or 5 days, lose his job, or have his job find out he's been arrested for such a thing. This is the way this system impacts our communities that people don't realize. The children who are at home, daddy won't be home because daddy's sitting in the county jail because daddy had 7 unpaid parking tickets, not to mention how demoralizing it's going to be for that man who's sitting in that county jail for 4 or 5 days. These are the kind of things that communities must work on. These are the things that affect us in a way we don't realize, but I will tell you, we are the only ones who don't realize how bad it affects us. Mm-hmm. The others know just how much damage this does to the fiber of a family. If I lock him up and he's in jail for 4 or 5 days, his family's going to be miserable.
Wow. Well, yeah, and you all have raised some great points, and Madam State's Attorney and Phil, I know you all have things to do this evening, so I'm just going to throw out this last question because, Prince George's County is a very unique place, not only with the affluence that it has and the level of education that it has and just a lot of great things that are going on there, but, one of the other things that I don't think people recognize is that the county executive, the fire chief, the school CEO, and the state's attorney are all African-American women. And, and that's unheard of in a lot of jurisdictions. And that just goes to show the incredible things that are going on there. And Madam State's Attorney, my question with that, in that vein, is what has been one of the primary challenges that you found occupying such a powerful office as an African-American woman? And what advice would you give to those young ladies that are looking at you and your compatriots saying, that's where I want to be in 4, 5, 10 years down the road?
Yeah, I think that the biggest challenge is that, we're still very new to these types of positions. It's not often that you see females in these positions, and certainly not Black females in these positions. So there's always going to be a challenge to you, to your authority. There are always going to be people questioning you and your abilities, your competency, your reasoning, your judgment. That happens on all sides, whether it's your law enforcement partners. Sure. Who may disagree with your decisions, but understand that you do have the final say so. They may not like it, but that's just the reality of it. So there's some resentment sometimes there and pushback there. And then on the other side, you have activists who want you to release everyone from jail, or sure. They want you to not prosecute anyone for certain types of offenses. And sure. You know what? I'm not going to not do my job. No one's going to tell me how to do my job. Sure. I took an oath of office. I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do it the way in which I believe is fair and just, because that is what the people elected me to do. But again, Black women in particular, not just in the position of state's attorney, but up and down. When you look at Black women in office, we are the most criticized, most underestimated and undervalued when we hold positions of power. People always want to challenge our power and our authority and our judgment. But you know what? We keep moving anyway. So what I would tell anyone who is interested in running for an office, holding a position of power, is expect the resistance, but do it anyway. Do it anyway.
Wow. So we're gonna leave it at that, and certainly you're gonna have the last word, Madam State's Attorney. And we appreciate you being on with us for taking so much time with us this evening. And of course, Phil Lee, who is no stranger to our show and no stranger to hard work in terms of making things better and making things stable in his community as well. We certainly appreciate having you on, Phil, as always, and certainly Thinbad and Shannon. We appreciate you. And if you all have any last words before I close it out.
Oh, I just appreciate the work that all of you all are doing. As I always say, as a recovering legislator myself, Maryland legislator in particular, so it was always good to hear to hear sister doing well and can be co-signed by